So I'm going to talk to you guys about purple teaming today. I'm going to warn you right now. I'm going to go real fast through the first few slides. It's so that I can maximize question time at the end. I'm tooting my own horn, and I'm assuming you'll have questions. I hope somebody does. At least like make one up. Make me feel good. But the slides are up and they're available, and I'm going to wait outside afterwards for about a half an hour if anybody has something that they don't want to talk in the mic. If you're like me and are awkward, you can talk to me out there instead. So real quick, my disclaimer is a little different, and that's because I work for a nonprofit. So I basically have to tell you guys that anything that I say in here about a product that doesn't belong to my company is not an official endorsement of the company. It is essentially just my own opinion. So here we go. What are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about how you can get started. We're also going to talk about how you're going to identify certain resources that you may not have generally thought of as purple teaming resources. A lot of people, when they think red and blue teams, they have a very specific thing that they're thinking of. We'll go into some unlikely allies, those kinds of things, or teammates that you might not have thought of. We're going to talk about what purple teaming looks like in practice and what it looks like when it gets a little bit more mature. I'll give you a couple of example scenarios. We'll talk about what do you do when you're done, right? Doing it sometimes is easy. What do you do when you're finished with it, and what is it supposed to do after? That's sometimes the hard part. I'll give you a few of my own tips for success, and at the very, very end there will be helpful resources to get you started. I recommend downloading the slides for that because they're links. So you'll also be able to identify what I'm calling your big W's, and we're going to go over those a little bit more in depth, but essentially it boils down to what are your crown jewels, what governs you, and what staff do you have, right? We're going to dig a little deeper into that soon, but that's how you're going to figure out what type of purple teaming you're going to do, right? You're going to be able to select an organization-specific purple teaming event that you're going to be able to run yourself. You're going to be able to identify key takeaways, at least I hope so. You can identify your purple teaming maturity level, and you're going to be able to identify what you think the future for purple teaming is going to look like in your organization. Right, so we're going to start here. If anybody doesn't actually know what purple teaming is, I figured I'd start with, colors, right? So red and blue, you mix them together, they give you kind of a color that's similar to violet light. So if you're thinking purple teaming, think about the colors, red and blue. What do you do when you mix them together? Now, down below, you're going to see some unproductive stereotypes. Let's call them that. So generally, when we think red team, we think hacker, penetration tester, attacker. A lot of times, they're considered kind of scary, like, all I do is like own you. Like they're kind of brash a little bit. That's what people think. It's not always the case. It's just kind of this like stereotype you get from like TV and movies. They're always like the villain or the bad guy or girl or person, right? As you imagine the person in the basement with the hoodie pulled up, right? Blue team, I love this because I've been some sort of IT or blue team for the last 20 years, and they just go like, you're IT. They don't know the difference. You're just like a IT guy. Thank you. So the other thing they think of is the Security Operations Center, the SOC. Those two things don't necessarily always have to be who makes up your blue team, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. They're the defender. A lot of times a lot of people think that they're burnt out, disconnected, or uncaring. That's because of just the sheer amount of stuff they're dealing with on a daily basis. I totally get it. It's not always the case, but a lot of times when you see these guys, they're just kind of like sending you an alert and being like, here's this, and that's it. So they seem a little disconnected. They're the good guy, but they're also the blocker. I can't tell you how much of my day is just me going like, no, we can't do that. Let's do it in a different way that makes more sense, is a little more secure, right? So a lot of times we're considered the blocker, right? So this section is defining purple teaming by experts. Now, the bottom two essentially are threat-informed defense. The top one I'm going to read to you. I'm going to read it to you because Ed Scotus told me this himself. I had the pleasure of sitting with him for a little while at a red teaming event I was at, and I was originally talking about pitching this, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about pitching this for RSA. And this was his definition he gave me, which I thought was super funny. Red team and blue team are nouns. Purple team is a verb, and it happens when red and blue work together. There is no purple team as a noun. Let red be red and blue be blue, and each excel at what they do, but let them work together as purple too. He said it reminds him of Dr. Seuss, and it does. Ed's a great dude. If you get the chance to talk to him this week, do it. Super smart guy, super fun. But the other two, they're more common ones, basically talking about threat-informed defense. Now, we're going to talk about my first purple teaming experience because I think for you guys to understand what my definition is, you should know where it came from. Not super early on in my career, but about midway through my career when I started getting into the InfoSec space, I remember the first time I got to interact with a penetration tester, we actually were sharing a cubicle wall because we were in an office at the time. I was on one side and he was on the other. During the course of the penetration test, he leaned around the thing to me and he said, hey, like the partition, he's like, hey, I just found a pretty serious bug in one of your web applications. He's like, it's like bad. So he's like explaining it to me and I was like, oh yeah, that is really bad. So I was good friends with the VP of development at the time, and I was like, I'm gonna go tell him right away. Like, I'm gonna just walk to his office. So I walked up and I knocked on the door, and I'm like, hey, do you have a minute? And he's like, yeah, and I came in and I sat down. And all I remember is I explained this whole thing to him. He didn't say anything, and he had like 4 monitors, right? And all I could see was his eyes between the 2 monitors. He wore glasses, and he just put his glasses down, and he just looked at me, and he was like, effing hacker guy. And I was like, what? Like, we paid this dude to be here. What do you mean, right? That's the deal. Generally, and in the past, it's better over the last 5 years, but it was always that one's success was the other's failure when it came to blue and red teaming, right? If the hacker got in, the blue team didn't do their job. If they didn't, then the red team didn't do their job, right? And we got to get away from that, right? So when we start talking about my definition, right, my definition is a little looser, right? Red teams, blue teams collaborating to test, strengthen, and optimize organization-specific defensive measures, threat responsiveness, and vulnerability remediation. Now you're going to notice organization-specific right there. The reason that that's bold, underlined, the whole 9 yards, is because I don't think I can sit up here and give you an exact formula for how to purple team, right? Purple teaming is cheating at Battleship. Has everybody in here played Battleship before, right? So how cool would it be if you could just see the other person's board all the time? It would be the easiest game of all time, right? If my penetration tester and I work together and we do our job well, I basically have a mirror on the other side of the board and I can see what the bad guy's going to do. How well we do directly affects how big that mirror is going to be and how it's going to be moved around the board. So just think about it that way. Your purple teaming adventures basically are the better you can cheat in the real world, right? So we're talking about getting started now. I thought this was a good visual reference in case you guys forget what the big W's are, right? What governs you? What are your jewels and what staff do you have, right? We start talking about what's important to your organization. Is it people? Is it data? Is it locations? Is it databases? Is it physical sheets of paper, right? Like, I can't tell you what that is. You have to know what it is, right? So part of starting your purple teaming exercises is figuring out, hey, what are the crown jewels at my organization? So secondarily, what governs you? We're going to break this down a little bit, right? Like, because some people think governance and they're just like, oh yeah, it's like audit stuff. That's not what it is, right? My director at GRC is right here. She can tell you. It's not, right? It's so much more than that. So like, you have to think about legal requirements. You have to think about business agreements that you have with other companies, right? You have to think about cyber insurance requirements, right? After the pandemic hit, I just remember going through my first conversation with a cyber insurance company and just being like, we're getting like, just absolutely destroyed with the stuff that you're asking us for, and we're getting half the money, right? But that's how it works, right? When it comes to cyber insurance, those things dictate how you are doing your security, but it's only one piece of the puzzle, right? Finally, what staff do you have and what skills do they have, right? Here's the deal here. The first half of this list probably looks like stuff you're used to, right? The last half, especially after you get past third parties, some of you might be like, what are you talking about? Right? And this is where my purple teaming vision differs a little bit from what's kind of out there right now, right? I think developers, security guards, incident response team people who aren't IT people, right? PAM folks, right? All those people are going to be included in your purple teaming mentality because in some cases, developers are your blue team. Did they build it? Do they know how it was built? Do they know how they think it's going to be defended? That's your blue team. So you have to start thinking about, in a bigger sense, who is blue and who is red. Security guards, if something's wrong with your door latches on your building, right, or you get brand new locks installed, who's testing them? Is it the CISO? Is it anybody in this room? Or is it the person who accepts the packages at the front desk and checks people in? Are they walking around and physically testing? Hey, they might be a red team for 15 minutes, right? So getting buy-in, this is super, super, super important. If you can't get buy-in, you're gonna fail. Right? I'm sorry, you are. Some people are going to come to me after this and say, like, I just have to check the box, man. That's all I can do. And if that's all you can do, sometimes that's all you can do. But we're going to talk about options that you might have even inside of there to kind of make this a progressive process instead of just checking the box. But getting buy-in is important. Can you get it from your GRC team, right? My CISO, again, right here, he has a really great quote. The byproduct of good security is compliance. I think that's really important. If your security is good, you're going to pass all your compliance checks, all your audits, all those things, right? But here's the deal. Sometimes you got to go above and beyond what the audit's asking for if you really want to be secure, right? Systems and IT, our systems and IT team are totally separate, right? So right now, they're a sister group to me, so I have to kind of get buy-in from them if I want to do anything or make a change or get visibility to things sometimes. Legal and executives, I can't tell you the amount of times I do like a tabletop, and an executive is like, that was cool, I want to know more about that, right? Something as simple as that, right? They may know the technical stuff, but sometimes that doesn't matter. If they don't know the technical stuff, but they want to be involved, involve them. They can help you get access to things that you wouldn't normally have. Legal is the same way. Organizational sponsors, if you guys have security champions, get them on board early, right? Finally, you can identify which players go on which team. This is not a requirement, but for some of you that might help. This person's red, this person's blue, but you know what? It's a sliding scale. They can switch teams at any time, right? So some people are both, and some of you guys might go, I'm not even gonna bother doing that because I'm just gonna say everybody's purple. Cool, if that's what works for you, do that, right? So here we go, purple teaming in practice. So I'm gonna try to run through this fairly quickly while giving examples, but here's how I formatted this. I tried my very best to go from least staff, least cost, to everybody's an expert and you have a bunch of money to spend, right? So the stuff at the beginning is gonna be if you've got nothing right now and you wanna dip your toe in, this is a low cost, low staff way to try to get there, okay? The team gap analysis. How many of you guys know for a fact that your blue team is mad about something that's in your environment right now? Yeah, I see smiles. There's people that aren't even raising their hands. I'm like, yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Your blue team's upset about something. Figure those pain points out and figure out what an attacker could do with them. That doesn't cost you a dime. Take them out to lunch and ask them a question, right? That right there, right off the rip, I guarantee you they're gonna tell you, hey, you know that 20-year-old box that runs production that we can't get rid of? Can we literally do anything with that? Guess what? Maybe that's where you start. Maybe that's your first finding for your purple team because you know it's a problem, right? Tabletops, just in general, tabletops are great. It's an easy way to start off. It's one of the first ways I started off. Like, rally a team. Think about what's the worst thing that could happen right now. My favorite way to do this, go into your IT tickets and find something that made you real mad that week and then build an entire scenario based on it. It's really fun. It's really fun for more than one reason because at the end of it, somebody always comes to you and goes like, is that real? Could that happen? I'm like, it happened last week. And they're like, oh God, right? So like, that's a lot of fun. Backdoors and breaches, right? If you guys have never used backdoors and breaches before, I'm begging you to find out when they're doing the demo this week and go check it out. It's one of the coolest tools I've ever seen. You're basically playing D&D, only it's an incident response. And if you're non-technical, you can jump in and answer questions. Again, that's one of the places that like executives come in and answer questions, even if they're non-technical, and they feel like they're a part of the team. It's cool. Multi-layered worst case scenarios, again, that kind of bounced off what we already talked about. CTFs. Now, usually when you think purple teaming, a lot of people aren't going to go right away and say CTFs. My favorite thing to do, take my lead analyst, take my penetration tester, make them be on a team. You know why? Because they get an AI prompt that they crack. My penetration tester sees it totally different than my analyst, but they both get the right answer. So the next thing I know, they're working together on stuff going, what can we do with that, right? How'd you get that answer? And they're teaching each other. Costs nothing. There's a million free capture the flag events out there right now. Mix and match, throw them together, make them work together, right? Pen test on paper, I still do this. It's one of the first things that I started with and I still do it today. Basically select a crown jewel, run a vulnerability scan against it. Run it against the critical security controls. A really cool company probably publishes those. So the benchmarks, run them against that. Run them against the OWASP top 10. See how you stack up, right? Once you're done there, take a look at what machine you ran it against and go, how in trouble are we if any of these things was able to get through? The OWASP top 10, I'm susceptible. How bad is it, right? Because then you might even have something in there that you go, this is usually a medium. But guess what? That server's customer facing. It has an any rule on it. We haven't updated it since 1996. It suddenly is a high vulnerability, right? Again, that costs you nothing to do. A lot of that stuff is free. It just costs you the time, right? So make sure you're using threat-informed criticality. Now we're going to talk about security assessments. How many people in here have security assessments? A bunch of you. How many people in here sit down with their red and their blue team when they do their security assessment? Some, a little bit, yeah. That's an easy way to purple team because you get to go through that security assessment, whether it comes in from a vendor, whether it comes in from cyber insurance, whether it comes in due to something like Log4j, right? Are you answering these security assessments? Are you filling out security assessments and actually making them actionable? Are you looking at them and going like, where did we fall short? If I answer this, okay, that's cool, but am I actually secure just because I didn't fail the assessment, right? Sit down and use that as the skeleton, the framework, and build up around it, right? Event alerting and event and alert tuning. Does your red team talk to your blue team about the alerts that you're getting? You think the people that are making the alerts probably would not want the defenders to know what they are, but in this case, they work for us. So should we? Should they be working together on what alerts I'm getting? Absolutely, right? Secure configuration standard creation, right? Are you rolling out firewalls? Are you rolling out servers? Do you have a secure configuration for what the network looks like? What tools have to be on it? When's the last time somebody hammered on that and let you know if there was an actual problem? Right? It's very easy to forget these things. The basics are things that are easy to forget because we're all so busy. The advanced stuff becomes simple and the simple stuff becomes difficult to track, right? OTS, over-the-shoulder penetration testing. This is what I would consider that first story that I had with you guys. And it led to something I still do now, which is when your penetration tester does their work, let's say you're one of the companies who only gets one a year, right? All you got to do, ask that company, if it's outsourced, if it's somebody internally, ask them, can my blue team sit on a WebEx call with you while you do this? Sounds weird, but you know what? I remember specifically being on one of these once, and the guy started hammering up against our password storage database. And he got like that close, and then he was going to give up and go to lunch. And I was like, maybe just click this one more thing. And guess what? All bad news. But guess what was cool about that? Even as the defender, that got to be in the report when it came out. And something that was my pain point as a defender got fixed because of it. Something I couldn't get a buy-in on. So it's really important. Those things are simple, right? You got to do it anyway. Just let your blue team sit in on it, right? What's your vulnerability management program look like? Are you just scanning? I scanned it. What do you do when it's done, right? Are you doing anything, right? Is your red team trying to help you ensure that what you're scanning for makes sense? Because if you talk to your red team and they're like, well, you know, I was able to get into this box, I had a username and password, you're like, oh, my vulnerability management tool doesn't have username and password. Well, why? The bad guys are going to try to get them. Why wouldn't you try to do it there too, right? So what are your results? What happens with those? Do you actually act on the results? Do you have a way of tracking what happens with those? And can you retest them once you have the results, right? Is each finding threat informed? We just talked about this. Are you assigning a threat level on whatever it is that you're finding based on how bad it would be or how easy it would be for somebody to get to that machine, right? It doesn't have to be static. It doesn't just have to be what comes out of the tool. You can have your penetration tester come in and go, if I got in there, you'd be screwed every single way I can think of. And now suddenly it's a much bigger deal, right? When you're doing your pen testing, is it defense informed? Now we're going backwards, right? What do I mean by that? My blue team sat in when we were drafting a lot of what became like our scope and rules of engagement for my standard pen test. Why? Because if they had a pain point that we could build in, or they knew something, right? Like let's just say, they know that a certain agent is supposed to be on the endpoint. They could tell the penetration tester as part of your jam, test it. And if it's not there, then I know something's wrong. Because they have to make a lot of assumptions. A lot of assumptions have to be made when you're building a new product or a process. Sometimes you just have to assume the guy in the next cubicle is doing what they're supposed to, but this is a great time to check, you know, trust but verify, right? Physical testing versus technical testing. Are you just yanking on the doors in your building? Especially if your crown jewels are paper, right? Are you paying a bunch of money to have a pen tester do it? Or do you just have a guy walking around your building yanking on the door handles to see if one opens, right? I had a new construction at one place that I worked at, and they put these really pretty like windows beside the doors on all the entrances. The day we moved staff in, our GRC person, it wasn't this one, our GRC person at my previous organization came to me and she was like, some guy broke into the building. And I was like, what? Well, here come to find out, they hadn't put a middle section across the window, and the guy walked up and he just kind of like pulled harder than usual, and the door just popped open because the glass let the door frame cracks. Would you have tested that? I didn't. Guess what I do now? Go around and just yank on door handles, man. So technical versus physical, right? Do you have an informed, standardized engagement plan, right? Are both teams in agreement with what penetration testing looks like? Do you have threat-informed engineering? While your engineering team is working, are you threat modeling what they're working on, right? I just came out of the Hack the Planet talk, and they said something very similar, and I was like, yeah, please, everybody do this. Your red team should sit in on some of your engineering meetings, right? Does your penetration tester have a seat at the table? Maybe not. Should they? Yeah. Create deployment security standards, right? Before a product goes live, do you pen test it? Do you make sure it aligns with your vulnerability engagement plans? Does your engineering team have any kind of pre-live validation before it gets to go live? Who's the check and balance? Does that person know that they should be trying to pull it apart before it goes live? If it's already live, it's going to be way harder to talk about than if you catch it before it's live. And this is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty and start talking about, can we build purple teaming into what we're already doing as part of a cycle, right? We're getting a little more advanced now, right? Software reviews, infrastructure reviews, change control. Do you do all that? Who validates if something gets, changed in the organization? If they do they have a threat-informed eye when they're doing it? Right? My penetration tester gets to sit in if a change wants to get made. Hey, don't do that. Okay, well, that's a veto. That's enough, right? That's the kind of stuff you could look at with people you may already have on staff. You don't have your own penetration tester, maybe it's different, but maybe if you're the CISO, let's say you're the CISO, you're the IT guy who just thinks penetration testing is cool. Talk to that person. Make them your red teamer. They don't need a title. If they're in there and they're hammering on whatever it is, they are your red teamer. Doesn't matter what their title is, right? Behavior analytics. Now we're getting into the big daddies, right? This is the stuff that everybody's like, what is red teaming? What is penetration? It's behavior analytics, it's threat modeling, it's all this stuff, right? This is all stuff we've heard a million times, but this takes staff and time and specialists, right? You can't just sit down and go like, hey, we're a 20 people mom and pop shop, we're ready for behavior analytics. Yeah, if you had staff that was specialized in it, you are, because it's small enough that whoever's like coming in to run, it's gonna go, sweet, I have like a clean slate and 10 people to take care of. But you probably don't have the money or the people who are specialized in this to do it, right? So keep that in mind. Understand what it is your company's capable of. That's why the staff piece is important, right? Does your blue team know what abnormal usage looks like, and does your red team ever weigh in on what the model is telling the blue team a bad guy's doing, right? Because if you're just like, I think this is a bad guy, and the red team is like, you didn't see the 12 other things I did, then what good is it if you think it's a bad guy? Test it, right? Threat intel alerting. Do you have anybody actually proactively looking for threats? This is, I think, going to be big next year. I'm not going to tell you how I know that, but I would guess that this is going to be a big deal next year, a much bigger deal than it was this year, right? Proactively being a threat intel person, getting out there trying to find out what threats are against organizations that are similar to yours, get some of that data under your belt, start tracking it now, right? Does your blue team have a plan of action when you find that for right now? Maybe not, probably not, right? Got to figure that out. Does your red team know how to provide their own proactive intel? If your red team finds something, right, how are they sharing it? Do you know? Do you know how to share it? Do you know who to send it to? Again, red team does not have to be a penetration tester. It could be like Dave from accounting that finds out that QuickBooks has like some weird bug in it, right? That doesn't matter, because right now, for that 5 minutes, he might be your red team. Keep it in mind, right? Adversary emulation. This is the one a lot of people think of when we talk about purple teaming, right? Go to MITRE, pull some TTPs, run it, what happens? But once that's done, what do you do with it, right? Do something. I don't care what you do. Don't just write it down on a piece of paper and just go, I'm done, right? If you don't do something, then purple teaming just becomes exactly like a penetration test, right? And I'll talk about this later, but penetration testing, if you think about penetration testing as a point in time, purple teaming is forever. Purple teaming just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And you might have engagements, right? You might have time that you have slated out and carved out to say, this is my purple teaming time, but it doesn't mean that that's the only time you have to do the purple teaming. If you build it in where your engineering team and your penetration tester and your blue team and everybody else, and they're talking all the time, well then it doesn't matter if you've got 15 minutes slated quarterly to talk about this. If those people are talking, they can keep doing it whether or not it's time to do that engagement or not, right? Find things early and often and share them, right? Look for opportunities to prioritize your findings. One of my favorite things to do, especially when you come out of a tabletop, crowdsource your findings. I'm going to come out and I'm going to go like, I have 3 things that I got from this tabletop that I think are super, super, super important. But if I sit there and I talk to the networking guy, or I talk to one of the IT team members, or I talk to GRC, or I talk to an executive, they got a list of 5 that are totally different than my 3. So now you start crowdsourcing your findings. Okay, let's pick 2 things, 3 things from here. What's the most important to us as a group? And vote on it, just show of hands, right? Super easy to do, but it's going to help you get the things that are most important to your org. Start slow. I stole this from Backdoors and Breaches. 1 thing. When you guys go back and you're excited about purple teaming, you want to get ready, being here always reinvigorates my love of what I do, right? If you're going to go back, you're going to start doing this. Don't try to come out of there with 76 things and solve all your problems. 1 thing. Find 1 single thing you can all agree on, right? And walk away with that, because otherwise nobody's going to help you with it anymore. Because if they leave there and they got 52 things to do, that's all they're going to remember is you gave me 52 things to do, right? An interesting thing that comes out of a lot of my tabletops is that I will have 1 finding, but I'll hear through the grapevine that each individual group took their own away that had nothing to do with me. So you might actually be getting more than 1 sometimes. Formalize your findings, right? Formalize how you're going to show your findings to the organization, right? Once we start talking about maturity, what does maturity look like? All these things we just talked about, they're operationalized. They're a cycle. Like every time something new gets engineered, it gets pen tested, it gets moved into vulnerability management, your blue team reviews the logs, make sure they got it. Like it's a cycle, and it just keeps going and going and going and going, right? So you're going to come out, you're going to have C-suite ready key performance indicators. That's going to be a sign of maturity, right? Because if you don't have those, your executive team is going to be like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting my time, right? So once you start getting a little bit more mature and you have those things, you're going to feel much better. You're going to know that the cycle's starting to work, right? You're going to have formalized and published red team requirements once you get a little bit more mature, right? You're going to know what you expect from the red team. You may not have them all identified, but you're going to kind of have an idea where they fit in, where they slot in. You're going to have required testing deployed, right? So people are going to know, I have to do this before you let me go live, right? You're going to have formalized penetration testing. You're going to have formalized and scheduled tabletops, right? Some people only do them like once a year. I would prefer to do them, once a quarter minimum. Sometimes we even use them for just like if the team had a rough week and they got beat up a little bit, it might just be good to throw one together on the fly to just get your team working together and having a good time, but it also is going to uncover those pain points. So get a formalized schedule together and also have a couple in your back pocket you can throw anytime you need to. Do you have threat-informed GRC? That's going to be a symbol of maturity, right? If your GRC team works with you when they're building policy, when they're making changes in the organization, that's going to be a sign of maturity, and we're actually going to talk about that here in a minute. Right? So formalized purple team, right? Do you know who the purple team is? Do you know who's included? If you do, that's a symbol of maturity, right? Do you have technical and non-technical people referenced there? Do you have training that you've selected for them, right? Those sorts of things. Do you have a purple informed reviewed SOP? How many people in here have standard operating procedures that they either have no idea what they are, but you know you need them to run the organization, or B, you know what they are, but you don't touch them because you know what it would cost you, right? Your standard operating procedures, if you get them purple informed, if you review them, right, and suddenly you can make them better and more secure, right? The company's going to be doing better because you're not going to have as many holes in a process that could sink you, right? Formalized security assessment methodology. Do you have purple, informed, consistent, and repeatable assessments? When you do your assessments, do you keep track of them? Do you know what your answers were? Do you know that you're making changes? Do you know that you're remediating things, right? Do you have formal change management alignment with your purple team, right? If changes are being made, do they go through the purple cycle before they can go live, right? All that stuff is going to be a symbol of maturity. So here are a couple of examples, right? These are both semi-based on things I went through. So I ran this through like my wife, and she was like, are those real? And I was like, kinda, yeah. And she was like, ugh. So I want you guys to just take these as mashups of stories that I know have happened, right? CEO and compliance lead informed the director of IT that they already signed a business agreement that changes the way the company is supposed to function for right now, right? Because they've agreed to something. I've seen this happen before, right? It's going to generate a bunch of money, so you don't really get a choice, right? Part of the agreement says basically like, hey, we're going to outline the minimum character complexity for your password, and you have to change your passwords every 6 months, otherwise this company won't do business with you, right? Compliance goes, hey, we need to get a policy together, right? This is what we're talking about, having a purple team informed GRC. right? Compliance comes back, goes, we need a policy, right? So they draft it and send it over to to the director of IT for review. Director of IT goes, hey, I was just at RSA, let's do a full team thing. That'll be fun, right? The group decides to sit down, they're gonna do some light threat modeling, and they're gonna do a couple of tabletops. They're gonna basically stage an attack against one of their crown jewels that's focused mainly on this new password policy just to see what happens, right? The results. Their security specialist notes that a skilled attacker could brute force the password that they outlined within 120 days. That's less than 6 months. So right there, we got problem number one. It doesn't match industry best practice standards in length nor complexity. Sysadmin said, hey, when we went to do this, we found a whoopsie doodle that looks like MFA is also not on that crown jewel. Yikes. Unintended consequence, but we found it, right? And that's company policy already. What are we doing here, right? Network admin says, hey, just so you know, there's an any rule to get to that box, by the way. So now we got a couple of things here that are pretty serious that we discovered by accident. And because we already had a skeletal idea of what it was we had to test, and we decided to sit down as a group and address it. So what are our findings here, right? The compliance policy is not good enough. No company on the planet is going to be mad if you do better than the bare minimum. I've literally never been in an audit and they've been like, you did too much, like ever in my life. If you have, I want to know who you work for and I want to know if you're hired. Like, because like, what are you doing, right? Yeah, keep that in mind, right? Stronger complexity, more frequent rotation is not going to kick you outside of what your business agreement requires, right? Sysadmins, they're saying, hey, we need to go audit the rest of the crown jewels because if we found one, what are the chances others also don't meet our MFA requirements, right? And also network hardening, just in general, right? You need to review your network hardening standards, see if you're meeting them. Here's an example B, right? So the CTI team alerts the CISO of a newly discovered adversary that's focused on company B's line of business. This is how CTI kind of works, like, hey, people that are also in this space are getting attacked by blah, right? CISO goes, cool, we have a bi-monthly purple team meeting, let's like talk through this. They decide they're gonna do an emulation exercise the following week, they're gonna focus on a crown jewel, they're gonna use what they know about the newly discovered TTPs. Right, in preparation for the meeting, the security analysts and penetration testers, they pick the 3 TTPs we're going to use. Results. The system administration infrastructure team notes the gap in time between when the TTP was published and when we tested against it. So the bad guys know it's out there, but we didn't test it for 3 weeks. That seems a little like not great, right? Do we need to look at that maybe? The SOC notes that one of the TTPs was super difficult to track because of the logging levels that were enabled on this particular crown jewel. They were like, we didn't see anything. Like, we have the TTPs, we know what we should be seeing. We didn't see it, right? And the penetration testing team noted that they were able to get a remote shell from one of the 3 TTPs, and the infrastructure team basically piggybacked off that and said, yo, that's like a brand new thing that has no patch right now. It was like off of a 0 day that was just published. That's scary. So what do we do? What are our findings, right? So we are susceptible to the TTPs. We got to talk about it. We got to let our senior leadership know this is a problem, right? We got to review our logging. If we don't review our logging, right, make sure it's tuned, how are we going to catch things if we can't even catch published TTPs with where we're at now, right? One of the TTPs was successful, but there's nothing we can really do about it. So what are our compensating controls? We know how the attack works. Let's keep doing it and testing things until we're able to see it, or we're able to track it, or we're able to stop it. Right? We also need to talk about the cadence of the purple teaming meetings because, like we said, it was 3 weeks before we did anything, right? Here are my tips for success. Scope appropriately, right? Don't try to do everything all at once. Figure out what it is you want to do and kind of scope it down. Work within your org culture. These two kind of go together, right? Because if your organization's only going to let you do one of these a year, right? You got to scope based on what you can do, right? That's part of W stuff, like what staff do you have? Kind of fits in there too. If you only have 2 people on your staff, you can't dedicate those 2 people 100% of the time to purple teaming, otherwise other things are going to get missed. Expand a purple team where you can. Remember, they don't have to be IT people. And again, if it's just a person who goes around yanking door handles, that person can be a red team for the day. Ensure the data and reports that you're getting from external teams is useful. If your external penetration tester is giving you penetration testing reports that you can't retest, Are they really actually helping you? Not so much. Talk to them. Figure out how you can make it a purple teaming event, right? Include purple mindset in organizational processes early and often. Build them in if you can. Communication and inclusion are key, and you do not want a perfect score when you talk about purple teaming, right? Because if you get a perfect score, there's nothing to do, you're perfect, you're gonna get bit. I like to always say I'm the dumbest guy in every room I'm in, right? There's a reason for that. Part of it is, self-deprecating makes me feel better. But also, the other part of that is, if I sit up here and tell you I'm the expert in purple teaming, I know better than all of you, somebody in here is going to come up and prove me wrong. I want to be friends with that person and learn from them. I don't want to tell them I know everything. Think about your purple team experience the same way. I don't want to get an A on everything. I want to find the problems and fix them, right? Purple teaming is not security theater. It's active, right? It's not just, oh, look, we fixed the things. There's actual activities you have to do. It makes checking the box progressive. Because if you're taking those things like the security assessments and you're building them into your purple teaming engagements, now suddenly you're making changes based on the assessments, which means it's active, right, instead of passive. Always review your basics. We forget about them too often. Informed defense in depth should be on your radar, right? This is where purple teaming helps a lot. Because if you're purple teaming at each individual layer of everything you're doing, the engineering team's doing it, the vulnerability management team's doing it, right? If something gets missed somewhere along the way, because somebody missed an install or a log didn't get enabled, all those things, you'll find it somewhere, right? And if that's a key component of your defensive strategy and you missed it, you could be in a lot of trouble. But if you have defense in depth, you have multiple layers of defense and checks before things go live, you're less likely to miss it, right? I think you also should break away from rigid thinking about policies, processes, roles, audits, and assessments. Turn those into your purple teaming engagements, right? So at the end of the day, you're trying to make your purple teaming work for you. So maybe your purple teaming looks like this, right? Maybe you've got really hard red, really hard blue. Sometimes they move towards the center. Sometimes they're in the center. But you kind of know where their lanes are, right? Other times, maybe you got nothing today. You got absolutely nothing. And it has to work like a ladder. I want to go from 0 to purple, and that's all I care about. Cool. Hire the staff that work for your culture. Hire the staff that understand your crown jewels, right? You work that out yourself. But it can be a vertical thing, just like a ladder. This one's my favorite. Basically, this can be a roulette wheel. It can be a dartboard. I can just come in every day and spin that wheel and put my finger on wherever I need to be that day, and that's where I am that day, right? You get to pick what makes purple teaming work for you based on what you've got. Based on those 3 W's, yours is going to be totally different than mine, right? So when you guys get back, apply what we've talked about, right? Identify your big W's, right? Who's going to be on your teams? What governs you? What are your crown jewels, right? Start to map out your allies and your teams. In the next few months, pick one thing that you want a purple team. It could just be a tabletop. It could be just running backdoors and breaches. Maybe it's just a free CTF you want 2 of your employees to attend. Cool, that's enough. Start somewhere, right? Schedule and deploy that exercise. Once you're done, find one key takeaway, right? If it's something like the CTF, find one thing that those 2 people together couldn't solve and send them for training. Sometimes that's enough. If that's what fits into your company culture, cool, right? Then make sure that you can take all of that information back to your organization and figure out how you're going to do it better next time. In 6 months, make sure you've identified improvements if you've started doing them, both in your purple teaming, right? Kind of figuring out what works and what doesn't, and how you're reporting it, right? Then begin scheduling your next exercise, right? And formalize your cadence. If you want resources, I've got them. I've got tons and tons of them, right? These are all links. You can go back through and read them whenever you want. I can go through these one at a time, but I want to give everybody who has questions an opportunity to ask those questions. Again, if you don't have questions for me right now, I'm going to stand out in the hallway when we're done, and you guys can always come up and ask. But questions, comments, concerns? You can come on up. You can come on up to the mic. Yeah. Also, if you guys have time, review my session. My CISO has a gold star because he got a high-rated session. So if you liked me and you like my dumb shirt, my dumb face, just dumb shirt. Give me the thumbs up because I got to beat him. It's a challenge now. Sorry.
Thanks for the presentation. It was good.
Sure.
The section you talk about key performance indicators, that's a takeaway. Are you talking about the actual event and the things that have happened, or the fixes that you're going to propose to the executives?
It depends on what your executives want to see. So that's where it gets complicated, right? Because some executives, they want to know where the failures were, and some of them just want to know where the fixes happened, right? So when it comes to KPIs that they might find interesting, maybe they find it interesting that like, hey, statistically, we've done 3 purple teaming events, we've identified 6 things, and we fixed 4 of them over the last 2 months. Cool, maybe that's all they want to hear, right? But it kind of depends on what your executives want from you. There's different ways you can think about it, right? To your point, is it just, we found this many things? If you are struggling to get staff, this sounds like kind of like a cheat or a life hack. If you're struggling to get staff and you come in and you go, here's the list of things I found last week, it's gonna be really easy to ask for staff suddenly because you're like, here's a list of problems we have that we can't solve with what we've got, right? Double-edged sword, they might come back and go like, maybe it's, but at the end of the day, right, like you kind of have to work that out. Figure out what your staff wants to see, what they want to hear, and build your KPIs based on that. Anybody else have questions? You can come up to the mic if you've got questions, or if nobody has them, then I can just call it and you can just talk to me in the hallway or come up here. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks for the talk. Very informative. Not very much of a curated question, but could you speak a little bit to a golden image org-specific hardened VM? Is that worth testing? Is that giving the blue team too much credit? Like, hey, we have every agent on there. You spoke of like, okay, maybe an agent gets lost somewhere. Just to speak on that golden image thing, that's an idea we've been bouncing around.
Yeah, I think it's super important to test your golden images anytime it gets updated, which sounds like a lot, and if you don't have the staff to do it, don't. But like anytime you make a change to your golden image, you should be repenetration testing it, or at least doing a vuln scan, checking the things you know are supposed to be there. Because sometimes, right, they have scripted things that get installed, or an agent that they think is there gets an update in the cloud service, and then the key doesn't work and nobody notices for 6 months. Now you've got 35 things out there with bad images that you have to go back and fix. I always recommend testing it fairly frequently, right? When it comes to something that has the images on it. So we have benchmark images that CIS produces. I still insist that we get those things tested when we use them. The reason for that is because sometimes changes have to be made for things like even images that out of the box are secure, right? You got to change them so you can run production. You got to change them so that somebody can sign in or use a script they use or whatever. So to me, it's always worth checking it. And if you're going to talk to your team and you're going to say like, we need to do purple teaming, that's a great opportunity for you to prove purple teaming being of value to your team, because you have your blue team there and they're telling you this is secure. But if you can get them to talk to whoever's going to be hammering against it, whether that's engineers, whether it's just you, whether it's just a vulnerability management platform that you're going to run and give them a report out of, right? If you can get them talking between the people who are making a decision about what's going to get hammered against it and talk about where even maybe some of their own pain points are, you're going to be able to come up with a list of things that you maybe didn't think of that you need to defend against, or that you need to bring up to senior leadership and say like, hey, if we keep going this way, here's the things we're susceptible to. We need to take this to our GRC team and have them tell us whether or not this is an acceptable risk. Right? Sure. Anything else? Anybody else? You can just walk up to the mic. You don't have to hold your hand up. Anybody? Anything? Nothing? Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out for my nonsense.